Noam Chomsky voices his criticism of American exceptionalism, the belief that the United States holds a special place in world history and is morally superior to other nations. Chomsky argues that the concept of American exceptionalism is often used to justify as interventionism and foreign policy choices that may not be in the best interests of the global community or even the U.S. itself. The idea that America always seems to be on the, quote, right side when it comes to promoting democracy. Around the world, and I guess that's same here with the situations in Egypt and Syria and so forth, and the media always seems to kind of jump in and, support this idea that America is always right, we're always the ones with the white hats, we're the exceptional ones. Could you elaborate on that? Because I just thought that was so profound. Yeah, well, it's true. There's even a name for it. It's called American Exceptionalism, and it's a DOP. It's a DOCT, which is adopted pretty much across the spectrum. There is a debate going on about foreign policies, so a lively debate about, say, what's called sometimes the Obama Doctrine. Every president has to have a doctrine ever since Nixon. So what's the Obama Doctrine? Well, there's a debate as to whether Obama is going to hold the banner of American exceptionalism the way his predecessors have done proudly, maintaining that the U.S. is exceptional, or is he going to veer towards what's called isolationism, which is a strange notion in itself. Isolationism means we should obey international law and accepted practice and not act like a rogue state that throws, that uses force, violence, and threat at will. That's called isolationism. But both. Between these extremes, the debate rages. Both extremes accept the fundamental principle of what's called American exceptionalism, namely what you described, that the United States is dedicated to freedom, equality, democracy, human rights, all good. Things they agree, of course, that we sometimes make mistakes in our innocence or KN or blunders, but nothing can be fundamentally immoral or improper. That's American exceptionalism. That's accepted on all sides. A couple of comments to make about this. For one thing, there's nothing particularly American about it. Every great power takes the same stands, so the Stalinism Russia prided itself on its advancing the cause of human civilization, promoting democracy. People's democracy, defending the world against the fascist forces led by the United States Imperial Japan, and it's right in the midst of its worst horrendous atrocities. You read its internal. They were discussing with each other how they're going to bring an earthly paradise to the people of China. They're going to in Manchuria. The ones they were massacring, they're going to protect them from the Chinese bandits who were trying to disrupt the peace and harmony and development that they're bringing, and so on. Same with Hitler. Hitler was going to, when he took over Czechoslovakia, was going to end ethnic cleansing, bring the conflicted people of the country under the cover of Germany. That's advanced culture and advanced technology and would help them develop. Britain, of course, was so magnificent that only those who were really backward could impute ugly motives to it. Even the leading figures like John Stuart Mill advocated this position of France had its civilizing mission, a go back anywhere. You find the same thing, so it's not American exceptional. It is not exceptional. Another aspect of it is that the doctrine is immune to fact. It doesn't matter what the facts are. Actually, that's even been pointed out by some of the most well-known and respected advocates of American exceptionalism. So take, for example, Hans Morgenthau, fine scholar, one of the founders of the dominant field of the dominant school of international relations. It's called realism hard-headed. No sentimental realism. Hans Morgenthau was one of the founders, and he wrote a book called The Purpose of America, in which he presented the thesis that the United States is unlike all other countries, past and present, in that it has a purpose. A transcendent purpose. The purpose is to bring equality and freedom and democracy and other good things everywhere. But he was a serious scholar. So he looked through the record, and he recognized that the United States has consistently acted in ways which violate its purpose. And then he adds an interesting comment, which is to the point, although not in the way he intended. He says to criticize the notion of American exceptionalism of us, fundamental us idealism, to criticize it on these grounds is like the error of atheism which criticizes God, the God's munificence on grounds that evil exists, he says. We can't fall into the error of atheism. That means that the doctrine holds whatever the fact immune to fact, so it's a religious doctrine, and it should be regarded that way. It's a secular religion. one commonly constructed by power systems to justify themselves, to justify their own crimes and atrocities, which are at most, as Obama said about the invasion of Iraq, a blunder, a strategic blunder. He was greatly praised by liberals to say it's a strategic blunder, though they didn't bother pointing out that you could read the same thing in PR in the early 1980s, where commentators who had their own form of exceptionalism, Russian exceptionalism, complained that the invasion of Afghanistan was a blunder. Strategic blunder? Shouldn't have done it, or for that matter, German generals after Stalingrad. They recognized that Hitler's two-front war was a strategic blunder, shouldn't have done it, should have knocked off. Britain first, well, we don't admire them for these stands. In fact, we regard them as morally grotesque. But the same stand on our own part is regarded as highly moral and extremely admirable. So Obama is honored for taking this position, and that follows from the exceptionalist doctrine that whatever we do is very well motivated, even though we can make mistakes. We were innocent. We were naive. We didn't think things through, so we got something wrong. I mean, even the most saintly person or power system can make mistakes. That's with regard to democracy with you, which you brought up. That's an interesting case, and it accords very well with Hans Morgenthau. Thesis, inadvertent thesis, that the doctrine of religion, so for example, it's consistently the case that the United States opposes. Democracy, you mentioned the Middle East. Consistently, the United States has opposed democracy in the Middle East, and this has been recognized internally. So, for example, you go back to 1958, President Eisenhower raised the question with his staff why there is what he called a campaign of hatred against us in the Arab world, and not by the governments which more or less support us, but by the people and the National Security Council, planning agency, in fact. Came out with an analysis, a document, it's long been declassified, in which they explained the campaign of hatred. They said there's a perception in the region among the people that the United States supports harsh and brutal dictatorships and blocks democracy and development, and that we do it because we have the goal of controlling their energy resources. And I went on to say that this is pretty accurate, and furthermore, that's what we should be doing, but nevertheless we support democracy. And Chomsky emphasizes analyzing us actions critically rather than blindly accepting a narrative of inherent righteousness. Chomsky points to historical and contemporary examples of us involvement in regime changes and military actions that have destabilized regions. Chomsky critiques the hypocrisy of the U.S. promoting democracy and human rights abroad, while often supporting authoritarian regimes that serve its strategic interests. Well, I hope you liked the video and subscribe to the channel. If you can check out my other channel, Progressive Movement, link is on the homepage and in the comment section. That would be greatly appreciated. Now take care.